Hello and welcome back to Backward Point Podcast. I am your host, Bashar, and today's episode is a special one. We had former West Indian player and captain Carlos Brathwaite. Remember the name on the podcast today. We spoke to Carlos about those 4 iconic sixes. He walked us through exactly how he came into the West Indies team in that World Cup as a replacement for Pollard, the conversation he had with Dwayne Bravo, and just his mindset and thought process during that last over that changed the course of that final against England and made West Indies the world champions. We spoke to Carlos about the aftermath of those sixes. And most importantly, towards the end, we asked Carlos his predictions for this upcoming T20 World Cup. So stick till the end to find what he said. A huge shout out to Backward Point Patreon members who help support the podcast and keep the lights on. Patreon members can get early access to content, monthly video calls with us from Backward Point, and a chance to get their questions asked to our future guests. Links to join are in the description below. This is the most exciting time to join the Patreon community because we are stepping into the T20 World Cup action. So I hope you guys enjoy this podcast. Sit back, relax, and the emoji of the day is firecrackers because that's just who Carlos Brathwaite is as a batsman. He's an explosive batsman who can really light up a match. So hope you guys enjoy this episode, and we'll catch you soon on the next one. Are you thinking of launching your channel?
No. Eventually I want to do something, but I don't want it to be, I want it to have a niche. Like you're all a niche, you're all in North America cricket, which in itself is a niche. Yep. So every time someone comes to North America, you can capitalize that and fine. But I in the Caribbean or in England is a dime a dozen. Yeah. So what would differentiate? So I got a few ideas.
We're rolling, by the way. So we can just go.
I got a few ideas, but none different enough yet.
Yeah.
And time.
I think your career itself is so different that you can just use that as leverage to move on to broadcasting. I think
that's only one. That's only one episode.
No, but like the thing is, your career itself is it is very unique in the sense that it took you a while to get into the team, and then once you were in the team, you made a name for yourself. And then one thing that we'll touch on every little thing, but one thing that's honestly the most admiring for me, your accolades aside, but the fact that you finished school and then you knew what you wanted to do post cricket, which was broadcasting, and you applied yourself immediately to it. Can you talk about that a little bit?
I am happy that it came over that way.
Yeah.
But it was indeed not structured that way.
Okay.
And I'll be very honest, I can't do school and cricket. I got ADHD, so when I'm doing something, I'm doing it. And if I'm not doing something, you could bet your bottom dollar I'm not doing it. I would have no interest, no motivation, whatever. So for me, school, I would say at primary school, like first and second, all the time, it was school. Once cricket came into the picture, they started to get a little older, a little bit more mischievous. They started to drop down to third in class. And I remember, I think I came third in class 2 or 3 in primary school, and I cried because I just never accustomed like being on that side of the podium or whatever. And then you get to secondary school and it's cricket, it's girls, and all of a sudden third in the class. I was like, whoa, how did I get this high? So yeah, and then after school I went to Barbados Community College and I just couldn't hack it. Like my GPA was 3.12 after the first semester, but then before the second semester was when senior trials started and couldn't do both. So I dropped out of community college and then enrolled in UE, University of West Indies in Barbados, because I had the opportunity to play cricket. So I can be very honest. And I would have done UE maybe once or twice due to the fact that it was an avenue to play cricket. So by then, school was off the radar. And you will probably get to this when we talk about family, but I think a lot of people ask me, when is the moment that you knew you had to make it pro and like had to be successful? And I point to a time when, so my mom took out a student loan for me to get to community college and to be enrolled and whatever. And after the first semester, it was fine. You're repaying, whatever. But then the second semester, my GPA dropped from 3.1 to about 1 point something. Like I basically just turned up for school and didn't take anything in. And then at that time, I was like, Mommy, I feel like I'm wasting the money. Like I neither here in school mentally, or physically, really, I just there in spirit. My body is at trials. My mind is at trials. I could get a degree at 60 years old. I can't play for West Indies at 60 years old. So I want to go hard at cricket. And I remember like you could see the dejection in her face. I mean, all Caribbean, African, and Asian parents are like doctor, lawyer, bank manager. Like those are the only things that make you successful. But she was like, you know what? One of the things that she told me when I was young, if you want to pick garbage up from the side of the road, be the best that you can be and we'll support you. And it was at that moment where she was like, it's fine, I'll support you. And I think getting that backing from your mother after she's made a financial sacrifice is like, shit, you have to be successful.
The work ethic shows, right? In the way that you pursue the game, the way that you take the game on. It's that thing that your mother instilled in you from the start that, hey, even if you got to do the garbage picking, you got to be the best at it. And we can see that as your game progresses is that you work on your strengths, you work on your moments, and then you're fearless. And, you know, what's more fearless than the innings that you played in the final of the 2016 World Cup? You want to talk about that a little bit?
I'm guessing by this time you're so good at telling the story because it's been asked at every interview.
Yeah,
every
but
podcast.
I always try to a little bit of a different spin as opposed to regurgitating the same thing. And I'll come from the angle probably of, you know, I see myself as maybe like the nearly man, just the man that's always ready to fill in whenever. And I kind of structure my game the same way. A lot of times people ask me, do you prefer the ball with the new ball, the middle, the depth? And my response is always to just do whatever the team need. And I felt like I was going through a bit of a good period in that passage of my life, cricket-wise. Made my test debut back in 2015. Had some good A-team and pre-tournament tours earlier 2015. But I wasn't selected. I didn't expect to be selected either for the World Cup. But Pollard got injured. Somebody else pulled out, I think Sunil. And then myself and Ashley Nurse got called in. And I mean, to be honest, we never expected to even come close to replacing what Sunil Narayan and Kieran Pollard would do. Let's be honest. I just remember thinking, like, just going to make the most of it. You're in a World Cup squad. You probably won't play because it wasn't the squad initially anyway. But, like, you got good momentum. Like, carry it on. Just try to be best you could. And I really look up to Dwayne Bravo, even now. But then we played in the A team together. So now it was the man that you see on TV, this legend, is now like a friend. So it was kind of surreal. It was like, I got his number, but like, should I message? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you never.
I could relate to that so much.
You never know how much leverage you have to use. So I just remember when I did get the call up, there was a little bit around the team potentially not traveling and pay disputes and certain things with the board and players. And as a youngster at that time, well, when youngster, not necessarily in age, but in like stature in the game, in the team, whatever. So I was like, all right, well, I mean, this is why you have a superstar's number on your phone to like ask these sort of things. And I reached out to him and I'll never forget, the response was epic. Can I swear?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So I sent him a voice note. I love a voice note. And I was like, bruv, like, just tell me what's the situation with, you know, the impasse between the board and the players. Is the team going to the World Cup? Like, you don't want to plan for a World Cup and then we're not going. So and we had this rewind back to 2014. I think I was A-team captain. I was in Sri Lanka, and that's when the tour got cancelled in India. And I remember I had some back and forth with senior players then just about us as an A-team supporting the senior players, the cause that they were fighting, blah, blah, blah. So I always like to just reach out, communicate. So anyhow, the epic response from Dwayne Bravo via voice note again. Carlos, there's a very bad Trini accent, but Carlos, we're going to the World Cup and we're going to win the fucking World Cup.
That's what it is.
I think it's because he made that champion song. So he's like, I got to make the trophy and the song work at the same time.
It was perfect timing, to be honest. And yeah, I just remember that filling me with like so much energy. It was just like good. I was playing first class cricket for Barbados at the time. So myself and Ashley Nurse were in the team, Barbados team. We got the news relatively same time. And I remember just filling me with so much. And I think we had one more day to play, and it was just like, yeah, I in World Cup mode already. Forget this white ball, this white clothes red ball thing. I in World Cup mode. And I just remember we had a training camp in Dubai. And yeah, it was just like the vibes was just off the charts. Like as a team, we did a lot of things together. Obviously the senior men go off and do their own thing. The junior men kind of stay in their box a little bit. But it was never like segregation vibes. It was always like, all right, you go with your people, you go with my people. Once we come back together, boom, team hit it off straight away. And it always felt like we had like a extra purpose. I don't know where that come from. I don't know how to repackage that moving forward. But the fact that there was so much talk in the media about the board versus the players were there. You had this camp to kind of show off your skills, get ready. And Phil Simmons was the coach. One thing I love about him is that he loved playing games. So you can practice as much as you want. You need actual game time. And we had clear rules. Now, if you're in a team with Darren Sammy, Dwayne Bravo, and Andre Russell, your role is very, very minute. So all that talk about going in nets and batting for hour, we knew that was irresponsible to a point because you're probably not going to get that chance. And we really structured our game, myself, Jason Holder, Ashley Nurse. We started to challenge Bravo. So you are one of the best death bowlers in the world. We come into bat in the last 4 or 5 overs. This how much we want. We're going after you type of thing. I think it helped him to raise his game and, not rest on his laurels. He's an ultimate professional, so he never would. But it's like that challenge that we had against each other in the nets, trying to get each other better. Whenever we go into tough situations, you could always call on that. And in that World Cup final, just being able to have that experience of going against Bravo. I mean, probably if Bravo at that time was the best death bowler, Chris Jordan would have been second in line. And he bowled an excellent 19th over. But you always felt as though like I've been in this situation in training so many times. I've worked so hard to ensure that when I get into this situation, it is me versus the ball. Watch the ball and react. And yeah, I mean, when Marlon knocked me in the middle, I was shitting myself. I absolutely didn't want to be at the other end. I was hoping that Marlon Samuels, which is a man that, I love Marlon Samuels and the way he plays the game, the fact that Marlon could fail for all the preliminary games. If you add final to the end of something, Marlon will turn up. Quarterfinal, semi-final, or final. That's your big game,
clutch
man.
Player.
Clutch. And I was just like, this man is 70 odd, how much have you get? You should be finishing the game, like, not me. And then obviously 4 balls later, we were World Cup champions. And like you had a sense, we all knew how England were playing their cricket. Chris Jordan and Ben Stokes were bowling the last 4 overs. Chris would bowl wide Yorkers, Ben would bowl straight. So yeah, and the big side was the long side to the leg side, sorry. So you knew it was going to be straight Yorkers. Like, that's what they've done all tournament. We beat them in the first game, I think it was, and they won every other game. This was their blueprint. They're not going to change it now. But he missed, hit for 6. And then the second one, he missed again. That one came with screws. Third one, kind of a little skew. But the balls happened like really quickly after each other. So, I mean, one thing that Owen Morgan has talked about since then is about taking time out of the game. Is something I've tried to implement as a captain as well. In those pressure situations, sometimes just going up to the bowler and just asking, what are you eating for dinner? Like, it has no relevance. Like, what? Like, it's not even dinner time. It's probably midnight, going close to 1 a.m.
Yeah.
We're in the middle of a final. Like, what are you talking about? But in the moment, with ball in hand, it just takes the pressure off the situation. And now you're just able to execute your skill against yourself.
Yeah.
So it felt, obviously, who's me to tell Owen Morgan that he'd done something wrong. But on reflection, I felt that's something that they could have done better. I was just allowed to just flow ball after ball after ball. And the only time they had a real break was between balls 3 and 4. And by then the game was as good as done. And yeah, the 4th ball smoked it middle of the bat. But at that time, it was just like, again, just focus on winning the game because the game is not won. But the field came up, so is Eden Gardens. Like, the ball not plugging and stopping and spinning back and all that. Once it gets over the infield, we're World Cup champions. And yeah, the ability then, I mean, I'm very privileged to obviously be part of that moment, but the way the moment unfolded as well, from the beginning, not being in the team to being brought in, to then hitting the first 3 balls for 6 and actually just getting a little 25, 30 second to actually enjoy it and embrace it. And it turned around to the families, the West Indies women, and it was just like, yeah, 80 odd 90,000 people in the stand. You
Wild.
about to win a World Cup for your country. You're not even supposed to be here. Like, what are you doing?
You can't script the stuff.
Correct. And it was just like, yeah, my girlfriend was there. She's my wife now. We got a picture holding the World Cup trophy together after. Like, there's so much things about that night that at that time I had my brand Trident Sports. So a good story about that night that probably goes unnoticed is that my best friend made the bat that I used in the World Cup final. So a few months before, he had always said he wants to build his house on his own. He's very good with his hands. We need anything, he can make it. So he was like, he wants to start making cricket bats because he loves cricket as well. Obviously, I was playing international cricket. So it was like, well, you know what? We got the brand. I'll order some clefs and you can try your hand. So his first bat was more like a road tennis racket and a bat. A little square sometimes and whatever. But it was like, geez, but if you could create this without ever touching tools, like proper tools, I can invest in you. Like, let's get some tools. Let's get some part-made bats. And I paid for him to go to Tim Keeley, who is a master bat maker, through Newberry, his own brand, Keeley. And they struck it off. He taught Errol, and Errol came back and he was like, this is the first bat he made. He loves big bats. There was no gauge at that time, so you can make bats as big as possible. Remember Warner's ridiculous bats. So he had this massive Newberry bat that probably weighs like a ton. And he was like, this is the first bat that he proper made under Tim. And then there are these 2 clefs, and Tim has told him to make a bat for me. Like, fair enough.
What are your bat specifications? What do you tell them to make?
At that time, I was using long blade, normal handle. And I'm not really a big fan, from having the brand, I'm not a big fan of this 2.8, 2.9, lots of grains. My thing is just feel. Because a lot of bats, so for example, that bat weighed 213.
Oh, wow.
But when you put it on the scale, or when you give it to someone, you ask them what this feel like, 2.8.5, 2.9, and you put it on the scale and show them, and they're like, whoa.
Yeah.
The balance must be really good of that bat.
Correct. So for me, it's balance. And I use 3 grips on the bat.
Wow.
So then that helps to even out the weight. So you're picking it up, it feels really light. You're still swinging 212, 213, but it feels like you're swinging 2.8. And yeah, I remember he called me a morning and he was just like, bro, I just made the bat for you. Like, this wake up my wife, I scream out about 1:30 a.m. I was doing it in the backyard and this bat feels amazing. So I was like, yeah, sure. Like, you just make a tennis racket, whatever, a few months ago. All right, cool. Amazing, fine. And I felt, and I was like, whoa, actually, like, it does feel good.
Yeah.
A little heavier than what I had before. So I didn't start with it. Started with the bat I was using. And then I remember in the Afghanistan game, South Africa game, can't remember who it was, Visa or Abbott. One, he told them we're bowling cutters into the wicket all the time. And I was swinging through the ball and missing, swinging through and missing. And I was like, you know what? That bat that Errol made slightly heavier and it might delay my swing just that bit. So I said, you know what? Call for it. Like, you ain't got nothing to lose. You're in the World Cup, your country depending on your collection of islands, depending on your, like, now is the time to make a decision. So I called for the bat. And I don't know if I delay my swing more, if the weight of the bat delayed, but all of a sudden I start to catch up with the balls. Bang, boom. Hit Roberto for a 6, flick for 4, I think. I think I hit him for a 6 and a 4, or a 6 and a wide and then a single, something like that. But anyhow, we get important 6 away off Roberto. And then, boom, win the game against South Africa, which was a tricky game. South Africa had a real good team. And I was like, I'm sticking with this. Like, it hitting good. I already see one fly out the middle.
Feeling good too.
Yeah, I feel good, look good. And you're getting some results. And then you used it, Afghanistan. Didn't bat in the semi, I don't think. Didn't bat in the semi. And then obviously in the final, I was like, well, there's no my number one. So like, it was even a second thought. I was stepping with it.
Another special thing about that final though, was, I know this, you definitely didn't hear it in the moment because you were on the crease, but after the fact, because we at home just heard Ian Bishop go crazy. I think that's one of the most iconic cricket commentary lines. Correct me if I'm wrong. Carlos Brathwaite, remember the name. We were in the streets of Toronto like a week ago, just prepping for this stuff and doing some man on the street stuff. And we caught some cricket fans and we told them, we're like, hey, this event is happening. Carlos Brathwaite is going to be there. And without missing a beat, everybody was like, remember the name, Carlos Brathwaite, remember the name? I was like, yeah, that guy. When you looked back at that replay and you heard Ian say that, what was your reaction?
I'll be honest, it didn't really sink in like right after. Obviously, you win the World Cup. Like I didn't even know the fourth ball went for 6 until Ashley Nurse told me it, like on the victory lap or whatever. Wow. So it was like, all right, hit the 6, we win, like good, like we win. Let me enjoy the moment, whatever. We took some photos with the scenes women or whatever. And then my wife had to go back. So I missed some part of the celebrations, like 2 a.m., 3 a.m., whatever, when it was no getting good. So she had to go back. So then like, I then had to make plans because it got bought in the IPL first, that my first IPL. So I couldn't exactly say, well, I want to go home and celebrate. And I had to be off, I think 2 days later. So it was all these preparations, it was manic, like everything was happening. So it's only when I think I was traveling to go to IPL and I just sat down in the lounge area in the airport and started to watch back some, because obviously, people send you loads of stuff, but you can't go through everything. So I now had some time to go through everything, and there was this man in Trinidad with like a stereo on top of a van and getting out again on top of the roof and beating it. I was playing for St. Kitts and Nevis Patriots. They had like a viewing party on the field. So there was videos like people going crazy. And I was like, I don't know if I like deserve this. Like, and then
imposter syndrome.
Yeah, and then people started talking about remember the name. And then it was when I started to like listen back to the full video. Because obviously by now, all I'm watching are videos that people would have taken on their phones and sending to me. But then when I get a chance to like watch back the proper highlights and like hear it, I was like, that is cool.
Yeah.
And then it's only when people start reciting it that it's like, oh shit.
You probably get that all the time on the street.
Yeah, you weren't shaking the tag at all. And I remember at that moment, like in the lounge, and my mom referred to it the other day, I just called home. I just called my family and I start crying. And I was like, why me? Like, that's such an honor. And I probably don't deserve to be a person that did it. Like, I've done fuck all. Genuinely. Like, this is the culmination of a exciting 10-year career, cherry on top type of thing. Just a little man that worked hard, was supposed to be at home watching it, got a lucky chance to be here because of injury, find himself in the playing 11. I was even wondering if I was going to play final because I didn't think I did well with the ball in the couple games before. And now we're World Cup champions and you're the person that do something amazing. They got commentary on it. I was like, yeah, mommy, I ain't sure how to feel about this.
How tough was it for you to live up to that name? Because you set the bar high as that guy who comes in clutch matches, hits match-winning sixes, but you were actually a bowling all-rounder all your career. So how tough was it for you to like live up to that expectation of being that guy?
Yeah, it was tough. I mean, all in all, it's still tough from a different perspective. So when I started my career as a batter. I bat number 3, so my first idol was Rahul Dravid. I'd always be the one that, would bat a lot of balls, see off the new ball, and everybody would come around and play shots around me. And then as I got bigger, could hit the ball out further, and my role kind of changed. So I've always struggled with, am I a batting all-rounder or a bowling all-rounder? And back home, people that would have seen me when I was younger always say, like, you need to get back to your roots. You need to get back batting. So it was funny because some of my best exploits in international cricket have been with the bat. My average is 45 in Test cricket, the 4 6s. But whenever I'm selected, it's always in a bowling all-rounders role. So at times, that can be a little confusing. I know how to work with it a little better. But yeah, there is a part of me that just wish or would love to see, you could quick sim from a certain place. I love to quick sim without the 4-6s and just my test career if I could go on to be a successful batting all-rounder in the longest format, because I did enjoy it when I played. It was only three games, but I do enjoy that batting all-rounder role. Maybe less pressure off my bowling, could come and just be disciplined. I just enjoy smacking it all about the park. And then you find yourself now you hit 4-6s, you win a World Cup, everybody expects you to do it all the time.
Yeah.
And I bought into the hype a little bit as well. I remember we had a tri-series against Australia and South Africa, and they had a couple times that I could have just knocked the ball around 1s and 2s, and I just wanted to finish it with a 6. And then you lose your wicket twice, your average drop a little more, you're under a little bit of pressure, you get a bad decision or you get a good ball, and all of a sudden it's like your average is 9 and 10 when it easily could have been 25 on your way up to 30. So yeah, I did buy into the hype for a bit. Captaincy was then thrust upon me as well. Looking back, I'm not sure if I was 100% ready for it at the time. But I enjoyed my stint as skipper. I just felt as though a lot happened directly after it. And it's only back end of 2018-ish, I think, going into 2019, that I had time, like I took myself out of all franchise cricket and I just said, like, we need to reset. And I think had I have the awareness to have that reset a bit earlier, my international career could have potentially been a bit longer. But I'm happy with how the story was written. And that sometimes I don't think I deserve the accolades that I get, but I always appreciate the privilege that it is to be a professional cricketer, international cricketer, and World Cup winner.
Why don't you think you deserve the accolades, though? It's your hard work, it's your blood, sweat, and tears in it, and then you were the one who went out there and provide those results.
Yeah, but I also see it from the other standpoint. Like, there's so many people that I see day in, day out that work just as hard as me, some probably even harder. And for whatever reason, it could be a player in their position, it could be an injury, it could be a family situation, a lack of opportunity. They don't get a chance to see their reward for hard work. So for me to just say, oh yeah, you work hard for X amount of time, you deserve all these accolades, sometimes I just feel like it's disingenuous. Like, I've learned now how better to deal with the success. But I guess that's just me looking at other people and thinking, I would love you to experience, because of the hard work that I see day in, day out, the same success and accolades and fame that I've been able to have and appreciate. So yeah, I think sometimes you do think, like, I'm happy that my sacrifices now mean something, they're worth something. Like, my family, the people started stopping in the middle of the road to tell my family congrats. So they were a part of the victory as much as I was.
Yeah.
I called them on the phone, so they were talking to all the boys, my sister, my mom, my dad. They got pictures in the newspaper with like 10 people in the house at the time. And we are that type of house. Like, that's the house in the village where anybody would come. Like, sometimes I come back home from tours and they would come, my friends sleeping on the ground in the house. They just were chatting shit with my dad.
Yeah.
Wind come through the door. They fell asleep. I didn't even know they were there. It was like, y'all come to like welcome me home. Like,
there are also moments where your friends are like closer friends with your parents than they are with you, because you're on tour.
Yeah,
and they're just
chilling. And so that my house was always the house that people feel welcome and accommodated. And yeah, so people came with beeping, congratulations, blah, blah. So they were a part of victory as much as I was. So at times, and most times, it feels really good to be able to share that side of the fame with the family. But as I say, like, I guess sometimes it's just understanding and appreciating that all hard work is not rewarded. So sometimes you feel, as you mentioned, imposter syndrome, like mine was rewarded, but that doesn't discount other hard work that isn't rewarded.
Okay. Knowing what you know now about fame and success that you got all of a sudden back in the World Cup, what would the Carlos Brathwaite of today advise the Carlos Brathwaite of that final?
First thing I'd say is go home after the final, because I felt as though I was doing a disservice to my current team, because I was there. All the cameras were on me, but it's a squad of 16, or even more because it's IPL. And I felt as though my mind was back home, seeing all the celebrations, seeing all the gifts being dished out. So for like a solid week and a half, my mind was still with the team.
Yeah.
West Indies, women and men. But it being my first time, I wouldn't dare jeopardize IPL, and I was like, nah, I can stay. Carlos Brathwaite now would say, go home.
Yeah.
If you're good enough, they'll buy you again and again and again, and 10 days can't impact how they think about you over the course of a whole tournament. And I have these conversations with younger fellas now. I've tried to ensure that the same mistakes that I made when fame was thrust upon me, in a sense, that other youngsters don't suffer with. And I just say, like, be true to yourself. The hard work now starts. Greg Shippard, Sydney Sixers coach, had a real good term. He said, it's different being the hunter when you're the underdog and you hunting. It's very easy. The prey is there. You sneak up on it whenever, boom, you get your prey. When you're the hunted, you don't know how many people are swarming around. You don't know how many people are trying to get you. And you then have to cover your base, obviously, to do what you want to do, but then also ensure that you got a big enough thing that you don't get hunted.
Yeah.
So being number one is 5 to 10 times as difficult being the favorite than it is being the underdog. So now that you're into the limelight, all of a sudden, everyone that wants you to be successful, know that you are, a few of them might be a little bit jealous. A few of them might want to see you off that pedestal. So you don't need to work even harder to guard yourself against such.
Yeah, no, we hear that loud and proud, because ever since our podcast took off, we've been feeling similar vibes. And it's really nice to talk to you about this, because we feel like we're on that pedestal where we're sort of riding that upward curve now. And we got to like sort of look out. Look behind our backs a few times.
No, yeah, you do need to look out. And it's not about necessarily changing what you're doing because you're the number one cricket podcast in North America because you're doing a good job.
Yeah.
But it's not about ensuring that you don't rest on your laurels and you continue to be number one and potentially look to be 1 and 2 and 3 and keep everybody, not by bad minding them, but just outworking them. And I think sometimes when you get that fame, you can get distracted because now, and I tell you from a cricket perspective, you go from being in the gym at 6 a.m. to then coming home, having a nice breakfast, having a chill, go and train for 9 o'clock. You train hard, you stay after, you catch some balls fielding wise after, you hit some more balls, you bowl some more balls. You tongue out your mouth at 3 p.m., you go home, you relax. All of a sudden now, you got 2 interviews to slide in there. So you catch less balls, you bowl less balls, you hit less balls.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, instead of finishing at 3, you got to finish at 12 because you got to rush to get dinner to get interview at 1. How do you ensure that your workload is similar and managed well, but you also have time for your commitments now that you have more media stuff, interviews, you might go and give back to a school. So people never talk about that side of things.
Yeah.
And that becomes a distraction. Not saying that giving back or doing media is bad, but it's something else that you wouldn't have had on your ascension up. So you may have to start doing interviews, you may have to start doing ads and that sort of thing to ensure you stay. So you got to ensure now that you do what you need to do to compensate for the extra distractions as a podcast.
So from that moment now, we've moved sort of into the future a little bit. And now you're a brand ambassador for the ICC World Cup. And you're going around the world and you're showing the trophy off. You're here in Toronto today. And tomorrow you're at an event at the Blue Jays. How does that feel? Like from acquiring one of the most prestigious awards to now being an ambassador of it, like that journey?
I'd love to be in contention to play, won't lie.
100%, why not?
A home World Cup would have been amazing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, I've made peace with it. And I think that's massive, and I think that's what a lot of 2018, back in 2018 did.
Yeah.
You make peace with what has happened and you make peace with what's to come. And I think, it's always a privilege to be recognized. Sometimes it's a little taxing, I won't lie.
Yeah.
It's a little taxing. But you work so hard without people being able to see. And then you walk down the street and people know your name, and it's like, that's a combination of years of hard work. Someone can say, we want you to walk around with the trophy at Old Trafford. They love Manchester United. Like, this is from cricket. Yeah. Without cricket, this would not have been possible.
With Usain Bolt.
With Usain Bolt. Like, it's crazy. Like, why? Tell me why.
Yeah.
So it's surreal. Sometimes you gotta pinch yourself. And then just remember, like, you've worked hard to get here. enjoy the moment. And the good thing is that I've got a very small group of friends, so I know they're happy.
Yeah.
So you can now like celebrate these achievements, knowing that the person on the other end of the line is happy and not dragging you down with their jealousy. So it's a good feeling to be, I guess, known. And it's a good feeling to be asked to do these things. And it gives you access to experiences that you otherwise would have had to pay exorbitant money for, or even be out of range of access. So now I'm looking forward to my first MLB game.
Yeah.
I might be a Toronto Blue Jays fan now forever. just the fact that my first game,
For sure.
home team. We're looking out on the Rogers Centre. So yeah, like without cricket, would this have been possible? Who knows? So they have to look back and then say thanks to my mom for giving me that leverage and ability to go and pursue cricket. To my dad for being a driving force. Me and my dad got a real love-hate relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Like this man never thinks that I do anything good unless there's 100 or 5 wickets.
Same thing.
And and yeah, we butt heads all the time, but I know it's from a good place. So the older I've gotten, the easier it's become. But I'll give you a snapshot into it. He still gives me shit for playing a dink in the World Cup finals off David Willey for 4. He hates that shot. I'm like, Daddy, it went for a 4.
It went for a 4, yeah.
He
Literally.
doesn't care. Don't play that shit shot. So that's a snapshot into me and my dad's relationship.
I know you gotta go, but before you go, last question. Who do you have winning this upcoming World Cup? And just don't be biased, please.
Have to be. West Indies has to be favourites.
Yeah.
At home, I think under Rodman Powell's captaincy and Darren Sammy's leadership as coach, I think they're 3-0.
Yeah.
South Africa, England, and India. And they've always won the first 2. They've teased the opposition, let them come back into the series, and then won the decider. So I think on one hand, they're probably the most powerful team, most knowledgeable of the conditions. And I think they have the most clutch players.
Yes.
I think Andre Russell could quite easily be MVP of the tournament, and West Indies to win. And that's no slight on your Englands, your Australias. Australia know how to win. India always formidable, not necessarily always getting the job done. Pakistan always feel like they have turmoil just before a big tournament and then come into it and blast off. So I think all the teams will give it a good fight. I really want to see PNG, Uganda, USA, and Canada really give it a good go and upset a few teams. If we get a repeat of Ireland, Pakistan,
I don't know if we want that.
That's the sort of thing that makes the sport what it is. Anybody looking at Saudi Arabia beating Argentina in the Football World Cup, those are things you remember.
Yeah.
So as cricket, we can't keep the results and who's supposed to win and etc. So I love to see a nice little upset, USA, Canada, Papua New Guinea, Uganda. I want someone sitting 5 years from now to have a nice World Cup story like mine.
I'd rather have Canada beat India, if I'm being honest. That's just personally speaking.
You can clip this up if it happens.
Definitely. All the haters are already on the keyboard. What did he say?
So yeah, I love that to happen. For me, if we can have a nice upset, an incident-free tournament, and a West Indies England final with West Indies coming out on top, that would be ideal.
Cherry on the top.
Well, hopefully there might be a new Carlos Brathwaite.
I love that. There won't be a new Carlos Brathwaite. It'll be that person writing their own mark into history. And
thank you so much for your time, Carlos. I know we cut it a bit close, and thank you so much as well for waiting on us. Always lovely to see you. See you soon again as well. We'll catch you tomorrow at the event, and have yourself a good evening there.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.